hardest part of change is the beginning because the old version fights back before the new version has proven itself. In The Prince, Machiavelli explains that this is true whether we're trying to change ourselves or change the culture of an organization we're a part of. The old system, whether it's made up of other people, old habits, or old incentives, will fight to survive. Machiavelli made this point in the context of government. He wrote that nothing is harder to organize, more likely to fail, than the introduction of a new system of government. The person bringing in the changes will make enemies of everyone who is doing well under the old system, while the people who stand to gain from the new arrangements will not offer wholehearted support, partly because they are afraid of their opponents who still have the laws on their side, and partly because people are naturally skeptical. No one really believes in change until they've had solid experience of it. What Machiavelli is pointing out is that change creates an imbalance. The people who lose from a change feel the loss immediately, while the people who might benefit from the change don't fully believe in it yet. That's why the beginning of change is so difficult. And while Machiavelli is talking about government here, I think this applies to almost every area of life. For example, let's say you want to change your company's culture for the better by no longer letting low performers slide. The people who benefited from the loose old culture may resist immediately, while the people who actually want a higher standard culture may stay quiet until they see it working. A similar principle applies to changing yourself and breaking a bad habit. When you try to change for the better, the benefits of the new habit are delayed, but the discomfort is immediate. The old version of you will fight back right away. And there are many other applications, from parenting to changing the culture of a team to raising the standards in a relationship. Anywhere there's change, the beginning is typically the hardest. And recognizing this can help us push through those early stages instead of getting discouraged by them. But sometimes, no matter how hard you push, you may still not be able to make the change you were hoping to make. That's why Machiavelli also points out that leverage can be necessary. He asks, does he have to beg help to achieve his goals, or can he impose them? If he's begging help, he's bound to fail and will get nowhere. But if he's got his own resources and can impose his plans, then it's unlikely he'll be running serious risks. This is why the visionary who has armed force on his side has always won through, while unarmed, even your visionary is always a loser. In modern life, this means that in some situations, if you want to make a serious change, you may need some ability to enforce it. For example, if you're a junior employee at a company, you probably don't have the resources or authority necessary to make a big change. But if you're the boss, it's a lot easier to enforce change because you have authority. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't enforce change as a junior employee, but it does mean that you would need to create leverage for yourself. For example, by convincing a coalition of other employees to join with you in making change. So to wrap up, the first takeaway from this episode is that the beginning stages of any real change are usually the hardest. If we want to make a change for the better, we need to be prepared to dig in, stick it out, and not be discouraged by early resistance. The second takeaway is that we need to ask whether we actually have the leverage required to make the change. If we don't, then the first step may be to go get it. So if you want to change something, first ask whether you have the authority, influence, or leverage needed to make that change happen. And then once you have it, be prepared to push through the early stages because those are usually the hardest.